Dragon's Wish, Chapter 3. The apothecary's shop stood well off the main road on the aptly named Apothecary Street, a place where buildings crowded together and blocked off the sunlight. The noise and smell of the market didn't make it to this area in such force, which is why Knighton, the master of the shop, had set up here, as far away from the main thoroughfare as possible, while being in proximity to the people. According to Knighton, bad smells, what he called miasma, caused disease. Sevrin couldn't see how a smell, or bad air, could cause disease, but he didn't question Knighton's judgment. The old man could heal as well as any leech, probably better. Another sneeze heralded Severin's approach to the apothecary's shop. Like all the shops here, they had built this place out of wood. The door had been constructed with mismatched planks, which had been salvaged from different parts of town. A wooden sign, carved with a mortar and pestle, hung on iron chains. Sevrin walked in without knocking. "Hello, Master Knighton?" Sevrin set his bundle on the table in the middle of the room. It was dark in here, even though the lanterns hanging on the wall gave a flickering light which sparkled off of glass bottles filled with liquids and powders. Drying plants hung from the ceiling, and shelves stacked with mortars and pestles, herbs, and other medicinal devices lined the walls. A thick gray burlap curtain separated the front room from the rest of the place. A raspy squawk cut through the air. Knighton's raven hopped about in its cage. Sevrin pulled some seeds from the pouch at his hip and fed it to him. "Hello, little bird," he said, though the raven was hardly little. He opened the cage. With a flutter of wings, the raven landed on his head and started pecking at the hair peeking out from under his coif. Sevrin had inherited his mother's hair, soft, brown, and light. It would wave in the air like dandelion fluff if dirt from farming hadn't matted it down. The curtain parted. An old man with bent back hobbled in using a walking stick. His beard, long but straggly and white, hung down his chest. He had almost gone bald, but a few wisps of hair still hung on. "Now what's all this racket, Nero?" Knighton looked up at the bird. "Ah, Sevrin, I should have known. That old buzzard doesn't make a sound unless you're here." He pointed a gnarled finger at Sevrin. "Probably 'cause you keep feeding him." "I can't help it." Sevrin put Nero back in his cage. "I like animals." A sneeze tore out of him. "What brings you here today?" Knighton eased himself into a chair by the table. "Need something for the sneezing? Or is it your mother?" He turned a keen eye to Sevrin. "Is she ill again?" No, Mum's well," Sevrin said, wiggling his fingers at the bird. "Good, glad to hear it." Knighton examined Severin's bundle. "I don't remember putting this here." "It's mine." Sevrin undid the rope he had tied around the sack. "I was in the woods yesterday." "Careful now, lad." Knighton put both hands on the end of his walking stick. "I hear a dragon's taken up residence around the area." "I heard the rumor. According to the talk, it resides far in the mountains." Sevrin shuddered. "You couldn't pay me to go near the place." "Wise lad." Knighton nudged the bag with his stick. "What have you got there?" Sevrin opened his sack, taking care to use slow movements. He didn't want to crush the plants inside. "Some of these I've never seen before. I was hoping you can tell me what they are. And maybe you'd like some for your garden round back." "Thank you, lad. Now let's see." Knighton held one of the plants up to his eyes. "This is Shurian." He shoved it aside, away from Sevrin. "It's not particularly medicinal." He examined another. As he did, a huge wet sneeze exploded out of him. "Take this out back and dispose of it for me, will you, lad?" He sneezed again. "What is it?" Sevrin sneezed as he took hold of it. "It's Neverswain," Knighton called to him as he walked to the back. "No medicinal purposes, but it causes severe sneezing." Sevrin sneezed as he ripped the roots off the plant. Then he tossed the pieces out back and covered them with dirt. He returned to Knighton. "I suppose that explains my sneezing." "Ah, lad." Knighton picked up a vine with small, rounded, bluish-green leaves. "This is beetlebot." "I remember." Sevrin nodded as he sat on the stool at the table. "It holds a cure for white fever, correct?" "Aye, you remember well." Knighton set his hands on his cane. "You take after your mother. I'm clean out of beetlebot, may I?" "It's why I brought it. I've had no luck growing it in my garden. One winter kills it off, yet it grows wild in the woods." "I've no doubt you'll figure it out soon, lad." Knighton smiled at him, his wrinkles multiplying. "You, like your father, are quite the farmer." Sevrin smiled. Though his plot of earth was only a small part of the world, he did love his farm, loved to feel the dirt through his fingers. "By the by," Knighton set a wooden container in front of him and added some powder to it. "What was the disturbance I heard a few minutes ago?" With a groan, Sevrin pulled his coif over his head again. "Lad?" Knighton dropped some sort of liquid into the container. A puff of smoke rose from it. Something the matter? He waved his hand in front of his face to dispel the haze. Sevrin managed to raise his eyes. The princess was riding through the city. Ah, yes, I heard she might. Knighton nodded as he stirred his concoction. I didn't realize it was today. Smoke rose from the container, obscuring the old man's face and filling the shop with a sweet-smelling fog. Sevrin let himself curl into a ball. She was right there in front of me. She even reached out her hand to me, but I could barely say anything to her. He lowered his head until he smacked his forehead on the table. Why do I always act the fool in front of her? Always? Knighton chuckled. You act as if you met her before. I did. Sevrin picked up his head. Haven't I ever told you about it? No. Knighton bent over his smoking cup. We met when we were young. It was the greatest day of my life. Now where would you have met the princess? At the annual tribute presentation. Sevrin played with the ends of his coif. Sounds like quite the story. Knighton tilted the cup to look inside. Regale me with it, won't you, lad? It's a long story. I love long stories. Very well, if you're sure you don't mind. Sevrin leaned back with a smile. Truth be told, it was one of his favorite stories, and he took any opportunity to tell it to anyone who would take the time to listen. That is the end of chapter 3.